She caught me in the act. A step family secret. My name's Nathan. I'm 25, full of energy, and always looking for something new to shake up my routine. I live in a quiet suburb just outside of Portland, Oregon. It's the kind of place where nothing big ever seems to happen, until it does. Our neighborhood is calm and neat, the kind where people mow their lawns every weekend and wave politely but rarely stop to talk. The mornings are filled with the soft buzz of lawnmowers and the occasional bark from a dog down the street. It's peaceful, maybe too peaceful for someone like me. I live with my dad, Daniel, and my stepmom, Elena. My dad is 58, a hard-working man who runs his own construction business. He's always been the type to stay busy, either on a job site or glued to his laptop late at night, answering messages or sketching out plans. Even when he's home, he feels distant, like his mind is always somewhere else. Elena, on the other hand, is very different. She came into our lives 5 years ago, not long after my mom passed away from cancer. I was 16 then, and for a while, it was just Dad and me in a house that felt too quiet. We managed, but something was always missing. When Dad met Elena through mutual friends, it was unexpected. He wasn't looking for love, but somehow, she became a part of our world. They got married not long after meeting, and suddenly, the silence in our home started to fade. Elena is 47, graceful and calm, with a kind of quiet beauty that draws people in. Her long, wavy chestnut hair and bright green eyes make her hard to ignore, but it's her gentle nature that always stood out. She never treated me like just her husband's son. She made me feel like family, like a friend. But over time, that friendship changed. But even with the peaceful life we shared, something unspoken always hung in the air between Elena and me. I can't say when it started, but over time, I began to notice the shift, how her presence affected me in ways I couldn't explain. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, so calm, so sure of every move. Or maybe it was her laugh, soft and comforting, making even the smallest conversation feel special. Whatever it was, it had a pull I couldn't resist. Our home was modest but full of care. A white fence wrapped around the front yard, where Elena spent her mornings tending to flowers and pulling weeds, her hair tied back casually. It was her space, her rhythm, and somehow, watching her in that calm routine became part of mine too. I worked at a small tech shop nearby, fixing phones and laptops during the day. At night, I took classes, trying to earn a degree in software engineering. Life was busy, but I kept myself going, driven by the hope of building something better. When I wasn't working or studying, I spent time in my room, playing video games, watching random clips, just letting the hours pass. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it felt safe. It felt like home. Then came that one Thursday evening. Dad had gone out of town again for work. He'd been traveling a lot lately. Elena and I had fallen into a quiet routine when he was away. She'd make dinner, we'd eat together, and then retreat to our own spaces for the night. Nothing out of the ordinary. That night, I was in my room, laying back with my phone in hand, soft music playing in the background. My lamp cast a warm glow across the room, and everything felt still, like time had slowed down. Then I heard it, a soft knock at my door. "Nathan?" Elena's voice came softly through the slightly open door. It carried a note of hesitation, like she wasn't sure if she should be there. I looked up, caught off guard, and before I could respond, she stepped in. There was something about the way she moved, calm, confident, graceful. It made me freeze for a moment, unsure of what to do or say. The door clicked shut behind her, and the room suddenly felt smaller. "What kind of worlds are you diving into tonight?" she asked, her eyes scanning the room like she was curious, but not intrusive. "Just scrolling," I said quickly, trying to act casual. But I could feel my face getting hot, betraying the nerves I tried to hide. She walked over and took a glance at my phone, then placed it down. Her presence filled the room. She sat carefully on the edge of the bed, like she belonged there, yet everything about the moment felt strange. "You've really grown into yourself," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine in a way that felt too deep, too personal. I didn't know how to respond, My heart beat faster. I guess, I mumbled, unsure of my own voice. She reached out and gently brushed some hair from my forehead. Her hand lingered a second longer than it needed to. I didn't pull away. "Have you ever thought about what really makes you happy?" she asked. Her voice was soft, thoughtful, like the question wasn't just casual, it mattered. I blinked. "What do you mean?" She looked right at me. "What drives you? What dreams do you have that make you feel alive?" No one had ever asked me that. Not like this, not with this kind of focus. I wasn't sure how to answer. "I'm not sure," I admitted, feeling strangely exposed. She gave a small smile and let her fingers briefly graze my cheek before pulling away. A quiet warmth settled in the room. "You should think about it," she said. "What brings you joy matters, Nathan." The silence that followed was different, heavy, yet calm. She leaned in just a little, close enough that I could feel the tension building in the air between us. The air between us felt heavy, like it was holding its breath, waiting. Elena leaned in, just enough to blur the space between us. I couldn't find the words. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from something electric I couldn't quite name. For a moment, everything around us vanished. There was only her, only this. A quiet flame sparked inside me, something that had been quietly building for a long time. Without even thinking, I reached out. Our eyes locked, and in that silent exchange, something deep passed between us, something real. The warmth from dinner still lingered in the room, a softness that wrapped around us. Her hands found my shoulders gently, pulling me just a little closer. I didn't resist. Outside, the world slipped into darkness, but in that room, we were suspended in something else entirely, something that felt like a dream. She reached out again, her hand brushing against mine like an invitation. There was no rush, just silence and slow breaths. She leaned back slightly, and for a moment, neither of us moved. "She's full of complicated emotions," she said quietly, like she wasn't sure if she was talking about me or herself. "Maybe," I replied, my voice low. "But whatever this is, it feels real." Her eyes held mine. There was uncertainty there, but also something else, desire, maybe, or hope. She hesitated, then leaned in again, and this time, her lips met mine. It wasn't rushed, it was soft, deep, and filled with a kind of energy I'd never known. My hands found her waist naturally, holding her as though she might disappear. She stayed close, searching my eyes like she was making sure I was still there. Her fingers paused on my arm, light and slow, like she wanted to remember every second. In that one moment, I realized nothing would be the same after this. Everything had shifted. She pulled back slightly, just enough for our eyes to meet again. Her green eyes shimmered, full of questions, fears, and something unspoken. Her breath brushed my skin. We didn't move. We just sat in that moment, feeling the rhythm of each other's hearts. "This is dangerous, Nathan," she whispered, the words barely audible. "What about your father?" I gently shook my head. "It doesn't matter," I said quietly, stopping her with a look that said I meant it. Alina and I knew deep down that the magical connection we had could not continue as it was. It was a captivating risk, filled with intricacies, yet a part of me longed to cherish the beautiful memories we had crafted together. The quiet that surrounded us that day was thick with hidden longings, a tension that moved gracefully through the atmosphere. We twirled through the shadows of reality, wrapped in a fragile guise that suggested everything was unchanged. Yet I sensed it, an unspoken tension, a weighty presence hanging in the air. Every exchange held a silent gravity, as though we were both anticipating a moment of revelation to articulate the hidden longings we both felt, but were reluctant to acknowledge. I found myself longing for just one more moment with her, one more minute before everything faded back into the familiar shadows of the past. Yet it felt like a dream forever out of reach. The path ahead was set, and retreat was not an option. Later that night, I wandered into the kitchen, lost in thought as I stared at the refrigerator. Its soft hum was the only sound breaking the silence of the house. My mind swirled, brimming with a tapestry of emotions and recollections. She remained in my mind, the echoes of our secret time sparking a flame inside me. There was a tension in her presence, something unspoken that neither of us dared to fully acknowledge. The gentle sound of footsteps reached my ears, prompting me to turn and discover Eleanor, standing gracefully in the doorway. As our eyes met, I felt the weight of our unspoken truth resting on her shoulders as well. At first, we were wrapped in a blanket of quiet. We had no obligation to do so. The silence that surrounded us carried with it unspoken tales waiting to be revealed. Finally, she spoke, her voice a soft murmur, filled with a tenderness that felt more profound than ever. "I can no longer endure this, Nathan," she whispered, her voice filled with a poignant weight that hung in the air. "It feels like a lot to take in. We've embarked on a journey through unfamiliar lands, and I feel uncertain about how to heal what has been awakened." I remained motionless, the impact of her words hitting me with an unforeseen force, rendering me speechless. I felt it drawing near, but as soon as her words filled the space, it became an unmistakable truth. In a moment of uncertainty, I softly expressed my confusion, my voice barely rising above a whisper. In moments of reflection, I struggled to let go of the bond we had, the unique thread that intertwines our lives. Elena's expression transformed, her eyes glistening with a mixture of longing and sorrow. "Maybe this is the path laid out for us, Nathan," she said gently. "Perhaps we should pause for a moment and consider all that has transpired. This tale we've been weaving, it simply cannot go on. It feels like a tale of struggle, where the journey ahead is bound to become increasingly arduous." I yearned to share my thoughts, to propose that a resolution might still be attainable. Yet the heaviness of her words surrounded me, reaching deeper than any response I could conjure. As I pondered the future, I found it hard to envision what lies ahead. I confessed gently, but within me, I grasped the essence of her reality. Elena took a deep breath, her hand trembling slightly as she wiped away a tear that had bravely made its way down her cheek. "Sometimes, letting go of what we cherish is the only way to keep the memories alive," she whispered. "I resonate with your feelings," I replied softly. "The idea of being without you is simply too much to bear." Yet beneath the surface, we both recognized the truth. This journey could not unfold in the same way any longer. We must bring this captivating tale to a close. I nodded slowly, my heart heavy with a deep realization that hung in the atmosphere like a softly shared tale. She was absolutely right. We found ourselves in a realm yet to be explored, and while the magnetic pull between us was undeniable, it could not eclipse the reality of our situation. For a long moment, silence enveloped us, as we both absorbed the weight of all that had transpired. We found ourselves wrapped in the gravity of our goodbyes, each word a fragile strand connecting us to what we were departing from. Then Elena spoke again, her voice a gentle murmur, yet filled with a quiet power. With a whisper, she said goodbye, her words a soft breeze through a still room, and then, like a fleeting shadow, she turned and walked away. I stood alone in the kitchen, the world around me silent, as if the ground beneath my feet was shifting with unspoken longings. I ached to call out, to stop her graceful retreat, but deep down, I knew it was already beyond my reach. We had come to accept that the past had left its mark, and what we once shared could not return to how it used to be. The days that followed unfolded in a muted quiet, more subdued than any before. As Daniel returned home, Elena continued her routines with grace, but beneath the surface, a subtle tension remained, threading its way between us. We both kept our composure, acting as though nothing had changed, but the shift between us was undeniable, a delicate strain lingering in the air. I threw myself into work and studies, attempting to outrun the emptiness that clung to every corner of my life. Still, no matter how hard I tried, The vivid memory of Elena stayed, a haunting echo I couldn't silence. Her gaze lingered in my mind, the touch of her fingertips on my skin. That single moment of connection defied reason and lived on in me. As twilight descended one evening, I sat quietly on the porch, letting the sun's last radiant burst dance across the horizon. The air was crisp, and the stillness of the neighborhood wrapped itself around me like velvet, heavy with the stories we never told. In those moments of quiet reflection, a deep understanding settled over me. Elena would always live in a corner of my heart, no matter how far I tried to push her away. The soft creak of the door behind me drew my attention, and I turned slowly to find her standing in the doorway, graceful as ever, a playful glint in her eyes. She held her silence, her eyes fixed on me, a mysterious look dancing across her face. We stayed in that beautiful quiet for a moment longer, the atmosphere weighed down by the truths we hadn't spoken aloud. Then, finally, she broke the hush, her voice as soft as velvet, and tinged with something haunting, something sweet, like the faint trace of anise. "We've discovered something deep, haven't we?" she murmured, her tone gentle, reverent. "Something about who we are, about what connects us, and maybe even about the quiet beauty of letting go." I nodded slowly, letting her words settle around me like stardust. Soft, ungraspable, but unforgettable. "Yes," I whispered. "I believe so too." Elena looked at me again, her eyes shimmering with a depth that only comes from reflection and acceptance. "My dearest Nathan," she began, voice trembling slightly, "I carry sorrow for what's unfolded between us. But no regret, never regret. Though it didn't turn out as it might have. I'm still grateful for it all." I felt something stir in me. Sorrow, yes, but also peace. The illusion that we could keep things as they were. "It's gone now," I admitted quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "But I hold no regrets either. Only the knowledge that we need to release this, to let it drift into whatever comes next." She smiled then, a soft, fragile thing. But in that small curve of her lips, I caught a flicker of the warmth that once wrapped around us both, like a shared breath. "You'll be all right, Nathan," she whispered, her voice a final embrace, one that warmed even as it said goodbye. "We both will," I answered. And with that she turned, graceful and composed, and moved back into the house like a dream fading at dawn, leaving me alone on the porch, cloaked in a lingering sense of yearning. I remained there, still and quiet, for a while longer, trying to make sense of the storm of feelings churning in my chest. Somewhere in that moment, I came to understand something simple but profound. I would never be the same. This experience, this bond, had changed me in ways I couldn't yet name. And though life would slowly return to its familiar rhythm, I knew I'd carry Elena with me, not in regret, not in longing, but in memory, like a song that echoes long after the final note fades. The days began to weave together once again, stitching themselves into the comfort of routine. But beneath that calm rhythm, something in me had shifted. Quietly, forever. In the stillness of the house, a hush wrapped itself around everything. Soft, yet weighty, with all the thoughts we had never spoken aloud. I pressed on, throwing myself into my responsibilities and the steady rhythm of learning, trying to reclaim the structure of a life before her. But even as I moved forward, the image of Elena clung to me, not with desperation, but with elegance, like a phantom I didn't want to banish. She lingered in the corners of my mind, haunting me in the most tender way. We both tried in our own ways to move forward, but the truth was, that connection, flawed as it may have been, complicated and impossible, had carved itself into us. It wasn't something to be unraveled or reasoned with. It was something to carry. For me, it became a vivid chapter, one I could never rewrite, never erase. A story that unfolded in shadow and light, that had challenged me, changed me, and awakened a part of me I never knew existed. As the days stretched onward, I came to a quiet understanding. Some experiences, no matter how tangled or taboo, are meant to live on, not in shame, but in reverence. They become part of our fabric. They shape the way we see the world, and sometimes they remind us that love, even when brief or forbidden, still leaves behind something eternal. And so I carried Elena with me, not as a regret, not as a ghost, but as a memory that softened the edges of who I had been and made me, somehow, more whole. Closing remarks. As we draw the curtain on this deeply personal journey, we are reminded that not all stories are meant to end with resolution. Some leave us with quiet echoes, memories that shimmer gently in the background of our lives. This tale of connection, longing, and letting go speaks to the human experience in its most vulnerable form. It reminds us that love, in all its complexity, does not always follow the path we expect, but it always leaves its mark. Let this story be a gentle reminder that healing often begins when we acknowledge the truth of what was, without forcing it to become what it cannot be. In the space between what we had and what we must now become, there lies strength, quiet, resilient, and enduring. Vote of thanks. I would like to extend heartfelt gratitude to everyone who walked with us through this story. Your time, presence, and emotional investment mean more than words can express. To the readers who allowed themselves to feel the weight of each unspoken emotion, thank you for your openness. To the storytellers, both on the page and within the audience, thank you for continuing to find meaning in the complex truths of life and love. A special thank you goes to those who believe in the power of vulnerability, who understand that sharing stories like these can offer clarity, comfort, and sometimes closure. Disclaimer. This narrative is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to actual events is purely coincidental. The characters and situations portrayed are entirely the product of creative storytelling and are intended solely for emotional exploration and artistic expression. The content may touch on themes of emotional intimacy, complex relationships, and personal transformation. Reader discretion is advised. This work is not meant to encourage or romanticize infidelity, secrecy, or emotional harm, but rather to explore the realities and consequences of human choices in a thoughtful and respectful manner.